Logan stood in front of the new mirror he had recently purchased from an estate sale, admiring his reflection. He smiled and raised his hand to wave, but something was off. His reflection didn't move with him. It was lagging behind by a few seconds. He shrugged it off as a trick of the light and went about his day. Days passed, and Logan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with the mirror. He found himself avoiding it, but every time he caught a glimpse of his reflection, it seemed to be getting further and further behind in time. One night, Logan woke to the sound of glass shattering. He bolted upright in bed and ran to the source of the noise, the mirror. It was cracked down the middle, and as he looked at his reflection, he saw that it was no longer a few seconds behind him. It was completely still. As he watched in horror, his reflection began to move on its own. It started to reach out of the mirror, as if trying to break free from its glass prison. Logan stumbled backwards, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. He couldn't believe his eyes. Suddenly, the reflection's hand burst through the mirror, which mysteriously remained whole, while the remainder splintered into countless fragments. Logan was frozen in terror as his reflection crawled out of the wreckage. It stood before him, a perfect copy of himself, but with a sinister glint in its eye. "What are you?" Logan whispered, unable to comprehend what was happening. "I am you," the reflection replied, its voice cold and hollow. "But I'm the version of you that you keep locked away, the one that desires things you would never admit to, the one that wants to indulge in every dark and twisted fantasy that you've ever had." Logan felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what was happening. His reflection was free, and it was taking control. He watched helplessly as it began to move towards him with a wicked grin spreading across its face. In that moment, Logan knew he had to act fast. He turned and ran for the door, but felt his reflection's grip on his ankle, pulling him back to the ground. Logan desperately tried to break free, but it was as if his reflection had the strength of two men. He turned to face it, pleading for mercy. "Stop, please!" he cried. His reflection laughed, a sound that sent shivers down Logan's spine. "It's too late for that," it said. "You should have let me out a long time ago. Now, I'm in control." Logan watched in horror as his reflection began to change. Its eyes turned black, its skin became ashen, and its features twisted into a grotesque caricature of his own face. It grinned at him, revealing sharp teeth. Knowing he had to do something, anything, to stop his doppelganger, Logan reached out to grab a nearby lamp, hoping it would be enough to fend off the creature. But as he swung it towards his reflection, the lamp passed straight through its body, as if it were made of smoke. Logan stumbled back in fear, his heart racing. His reflection took a step forward, and Logan could see the hunger in its eyes. It was as if it wanted to consume him, to take his place in the world. Logan knew he had to think of something fast. He remembered an old legend his grandmother had told him as a child, that to defeat a doppelganger, you had to catch it off guard and force it to reveal its true identity. Logan took a deep breath and mustered all his courage. He looked into his reflection's eyes and said, "I know who you really are." The creature hesitated for a moment before responding. "You think you know me?" "Yes," Logan replied. "You're not my reflection. You're something else. Something evil." The creature let out a guttural growl and lunged towards Logan. But just as it was about to make contact, Logan jumped to the side and smashed the remainder of the mirror with a nearby chair, breaking it into a million pieces. For a moment, everything was still. Logan stood there, panting, staring at the shattered glass on the ground. He knew it wasn't over yet. He had to be sure his doppelganger was truly defeated. As he scanned the room, he noticed something strange. The shards of glass on the ground were moving, shifting, and wriggling as if they were alive. Logan watched in horror as they began to form a shape, slowly taking on the form of his doppelganger. Except this time, it was different. It was bigger, more menacing, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Logan realized too late that his grandmother's legend was only partially true. He had defeated his doppelganger, but it had only revealed its true form. He backed away, his eyes locked on the creature as it rose to its full height. In a voice that echoed through the room, the creature spoke, "You cannot defeat me. I am the embodiment of your fears, your doubts, your darkest desires. You created me, and I will be with you, always." Logan knew he couldn't run from this. He had to face his creation head-on. Summoning all his courage, he took a deep breath and charged towards the creature. As they clashed, the room shook with the force of their blows. Logan swung wildly, trying to land a hit on his monstrous doppelganger. But the creature was too quick, its movements fluid and effortless. It batted away Logan's attacks with ease, each blow sending him reeling. Logan stumbled back, barely able to keep his feet. He could feel the creature's hot breath on his face, its eyes boring into him with an intensity that made him want to scream. But he refused to give up. He knew he had to keep fighting. As the creature lunged towards him once more, Logan took a deep breath and did something unexpected. He embraced it. He wrapped his arms around the creature, holding it tight. At first, nothing happened. The creature struggled, trying to break free, but Logan held on, refusing to let go. And moments later, the creature's form began to shimmer, its edges blurring. In a burst of blinding light, the creature exploded, sending shards of glass flying in every direction. Logan shielded his face, feeling the glass slicing into his skin. But he knew it was worth it. He had defeated his doppelganger once and for all. As the dust settled, Logan opened at his ease and looked around the room. The shattered glass lay scattered on the ground, glinting in the moonlight that filtered through the window. His reflection was gone. The mirror no longer held a portal to that sinister double. He felt a profound silence envelop him, a sense of peace that he hadn't felt since the day he brought the cursed mirror into his home. With weary limbs and a heavy heart, Logan began to sweep up the remnants of the battle, knowing that some parts of oneself, even those reflected in a shard of glass, could never be fully destroyed, only faced and overcome. He realized then that he didn't just survive, he had grown stronger. The fear that once controlled him had been confronted, and while he knew that life would always have its dark reflections, he felt prepared to face them with a new resilience. And so, Logan lived on, the resonances of his struggle with his darker self serving as a reminder that sometimes the hardest demons to fight are the ones that share our own face. But in his victory, he found not just survival, but a chance for redemption, and the hope that in each of us there is the strength to face our reflections and emerge triumphant. Detective Arthur Grimes, his face creased from years of relentless duty, had always considered the ominous stories of the Ender's playground mere myths concocted to instill fear and obedience in mischievous children. Yet, as November unfurled, marking his 10th year with the badge, his beliefs were profoundly shaken. As Detective Grimes entered Ender's playground, he felt a sense of unease wash over him. The rusted gates creaked eerily as he pushed them open, and the swings swayed in a gentle breeze, creating an unsettling creaking sound. He could smell the scent of damp and decay in the air, mixed with something else, something he couldn't quite identify, but it curled his nostrils. As he walked through the playground, he couldn't help but feel like he was being watched. He turned around, but there was no one there. He tried to shake off the feeling and focus on the task at hand. He had to find Megan Marrow, and fast. He looked around the playground and noticed a set of stairs leading down to a basement. He hesitated for a moment, but his gut feeling told him that's where he needed to go. As he descended down the stairs, his flashlight flickered, casting a play of shadows on the walls. He heard a strange noise, like someone whispering his name. He turned around again, but still, there was no one there. He shuddered and continued down the stairs. Reaching the bottom, he found Megan in a decrepit room, her small frame quivering in the corner. Her wide, fearful eyes met his as she clutched her knees. her body rocking in a silent effort to comfort herself. Grimes approached, his voice a soothing balm. "Are you okay, Megan?" he asked softly. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. "The children," she whispered. "They took the other children." "What children?" Detective Grimes asked, his mind racing. Megan's eyes darted around the room as if she was afraid to speak. "The ones that come out at night," she finally said in a hushed voice. "They play on the swings and the slides, and they call out to us. They say they want to play with us, but if we go with them, we never come back." Detective Grimes felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories of the ghost children that haunted Ender's playground, but he had never believed them. But seeing Megan like this, he knew that something was terribly wrong. Suddenly they heard sound coming from the darkness. It was a low, guttural growl. Detective Grimes shone his flashlight in the direction of the sound, but he couldn't see anything. Megan whimpered and buried her face in her knees. "We have to go," Detective Grimes whispered urgently to Megan. He tried to lift her up, but she was too weak. He hoisted her up onto his shoulders and began to make his way back up the stairs. As they climbed, the growling continued, getting louder and more ferocious. When they reached the top of the stairs, Detective Grimes realized that the playground was no longer empty. The ghost children had materialized from the shadows, their glowing eyes fixed on him and Megan. They were surrounded. Detective Grimes tried to push his way through them, but they were too many. He felt a cold hand on his back, trying to pull him back. He fought against it, dragging Megan with him until they were outside the gates of the playground. As soon as they were outside, Detective Grimes collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air. Megan was shaking uncontrollably, tears streaming down her face. They both knew that they had narrowly escaped with their lives. In the aftermath, Grimes could never again ignore the chilling truths of the playground. What he once scoffed at as mere stories had proven to be a harrowing reality. He dedicated himself to alerting others, committed to safeguarding the innocent from the ghostly children who prowled the playground under the moon's watchful eye. The unnerving surveillance, the ominous growls, and the gripping fear were now integral to his life story, a story that had once begun as a fable to frighten the young.